She looked at me. 10 months of keys and drawers and airport pickups and grocery runs and lending her my actual car. And she said, "Look, I don't owe you honesty. We're just dating." Just dating. The woman who had a drawer in my dresser, who'd basically been living at my place for months, who I'd helped study for certifications and picked up from the airport at midnight and cooked for and listened to? Just dating? Then she followed it up, because apparently she wasn't done. "We're not married. Stop acting like I signed a contract." Something in me went very, very still. Not the dramatic kind of still where you're about to explode. The other kind. The kind where something inside you quietly calculates that there's nothing left to save here, and the most dignified thing you can do is end it cleanly. I stood up. I picked up her bag. I walked it to the door. "You should go." She looked at me like I was performing, like this was some overreaction she'd have to talk me down from in 20 minutes when I'd calm down and come to my senses. "Seriously? You're going to throw this away because of some texts?" I said, "You already did."
All right, buckle up, because this one's gonna hit different. My name's Kai, 28 years old, software engineer, and living proof that being a genuinely good person doesn't always get you what you deserve. I'm not the guy who slides into DMs with thirst traps. I don't pop bottles at rooftop bars or pretend my life is a highlight reel. I'm the guy who actually remembers your Starbucks order. The guy who shows up with Tylenol when you're sick and doesn't make it weird. The guy who listens, like really listens when you vent about your nightmare coworker for the 4th time that week. And for roughly 10 months, I was all of that for a woman named Saren. Now, before we get into the chaos, and trust me, we are absolutely getting into the chaos, let me paint you a picture of who she was when I first met her. Saren wasn't the type to walk into a room and make heads turn based on looks alone. It was more subtle than that. She had this energy, sharp, funny, a little bit unpredictable, that made you want to be in her orbit. We met through mutual friends at one of those house parties where the playlist is either a banger or an embarrassment and there's no middle ground. We bonded over sarcasm and bad takes about reality TV, and honestly, it clicked fast. We started spending more and more time together, almost immediately. And look, I'm not someone who rushes into things. I've been burned before, who hasn't? So I took it slow. I tried to read her carefully. She was guarded emotionally, but I chalked that up to her being independent. She'd joke about not catching feelings like it was some kind of badge of honor, but then she'd fall asleep on my couch wrapped in my hoodie with her phone face down on the armrest, and I thought, yeah, okay, she's catching feelings. She's just not ready to say it out loud. That's fine. I can wait. And wait I did. By month 4, she had keys to my place, her own drawer in my dresser, her toothbrush next to mine. She cooked in my kitchen like she owned it, which, honestly, I didn't mind. She had a drawer full of her stuff and a spot on the couch that became hers by default. We had routines, inside jokes, the whole thing. From the outside, we looked like a proper couple. From the inside, I thought we were building something real. I did things for her that I didn't do for anyone else. I drove across town to pick her up when her car broke down. Twice. I helped her study for this brutal analytics certification she kept putting off. When rent was tight one month and she was quietly stressing, I grabbed groceries without making it a big deal. I even handed her my car for an entire weekend so she could visit a friend out of state. My car, my one and only car. She never said, "I love you." Not once in 10 months. I never pushed it. I figured people move at their own pace, and forcing a label on something real never ends well. I was patient. I was consistent. I was present. What I didn't know was that while I was busy being all of those things, someone else had a much more convenient arrangement going on behind the scenes, and I was about to find out in the most gut-punch way possible.
Here's the thing about red flags. They rarely show up waving at you. They don't come with warning labels or dramatic background music. They creep in quiet, dressed up as quirks or moods, or she's just going through something right now.
And if you like someone enough, your brain will perform Olympic-level gymnastics to justify every single one of them. I'm telling you this so you don't make the same mistake I did. The first sign something was off wasn't dramatic. It was small, subtle, the kind of thing that on its own means absolutely nothing. Saren started spending more time on her phone. Fine, everyone's glued to their phone, but there was something about the way she'd do it. She'd laugh at a message and then tilt the screen away before I could glance over. She'd go quiet mid-conversation to type something fast, then put her phone face down on the table like she was completely normal about it. I noticed. I didn't say anything, because I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, insecure boyfriend who checks his girlfriend's phone and accuses her of stuff without evidence. I trusted her, or at least I really wanted to. Then there were the other things. Little things that I shoved into the I'm overthinking it box and tried to forget about, like how she'd mention her ex, a guy named Daniel, in conversation way too casually. Daniel used to hate that restaurant too, or that reminds me of something Daniel said once. I'd raise an eyebrow internally and move on. She always followed it up with something dismissive, like he was totally irrelevant, old news, ancient history. She still followed his Spotify playlists. I know that because she played them in my car. I know, I should have clocked that sooner. But here's the thing, I'm not a jealous person by nature, and I think Saren knew that about me and used it like a free pass. My chill worked against me, my trust worked against me. There was also the thing where she never really asked about me, not deeply. She'd listen when I vented, sure, but it always circled back to her. If I started a story, she'd interrupt halfway through with something funnier that happened to her, not maliciously, at least I didn't think so at the time, but consistently. Like my inner world was a waiting room she passed through on the way to talking about herself. And the gratitude thing. She never said thank you, like ever. I'd do something significant, pick her up from the airport at midnight, sit with her while she stress-cried about her job, and there'd be nothing. Not even a, hey, thanks for being there. I told myself that's just how she showed love, differently, maybe through acts of presence rather than words. Looking back, I was building a case for a defense she didn't deserve. Here's what I wish someone had told me back then. If someone never says thank you for the big things, it's not because they have a different love language. It's because they've gotten very comfortable taking you for granted. And that comfort, it'll eventually come for everything, including your loyalty. I was about to find that out the hard way.
It was a Thursday. Regular, nothing special Thursday. No dramatic storms outside, no ominous music, no universe trying to send me a sign. Just a normal night that decided to completely obliterate my chest cavity. Saren came over late. She said she was tired and wanted to crash early. That was normal enough. She'd had a rough week at the marketing firm and had been low energy for a few days. She dropped her bag near the door, plugged in her phone on my nightstand like always, and flopped into bed. I stayed up to knock out some emails. I had a project deadline the next morning, and my client had the kind of expectations that didn't respect time zones. So I sat at my desk, typed away, and let her sleep. When I finally came to bed, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. I want to be crystal clear about that. I didn't pick it up, didn't unlock it, didn't go snooping. The screen just lit up with a message preview, bright as a lighthouse in a dark room, and it was right there. The message was from Daniel. Next time, don't hold back. You've still got my hoodie, by the way. Winky face. I stared at the screen for what felt like 3 full business days. Then I looked at Saren, sleeping next to me, mouth slightly open, completely unbothered, her lock screen photo literally a picture of us at a fall festival, and I felt something cold spread through my chest. Not anger yet, just stillness, like the moment before your brain catches up to what just happened. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, while she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth, I picked up her phone. I'll own that. I know looking through someone's phone is a whole debate, and under normal circumstances I'd never do it, but something had snapped inside me and I needed to know. What I found confirmed every uneasy feeling I'd been swallowing for 2 months. Flirty messages, long texts, inside jokes, plans to meet up, confirmations that they had met up. It was her ex.
Apparently, they had started talking again, just catching up, of course, which turned into coffee, which turned into drinks, which turned into the rest. The messages weren't just flirty either. They were intimate. The kind of messages people write when they know each other's bodies and are enjoying remembering that fact. I put the phone face up on the bed and waited. She walked back in, saw it immediately, and her reaction told me everything I needed to know about who she actually was. No shock, no guilt, just irritation. Why are you going through my phone? Not scared, not sorry. Annoyed, like I'd borrowed her laptop without asking. I said her screen had lit up. I asked who Daniel was. She stared at me like I was being exhausting. Are we seriously doing this right now? I reminded her she'd told me she wasn't talking to him anymore. She told me not to be dramatic. I asked her point blank, "You slept with him?" She didn't answer. She just rolled her eyes, walked back to the bathroom, rinsed, and came back out with the energy of someone who'd already decided this wasn't her problem. What came next was the line that lives rent-free in my head to this day.
I'm going to give you her exact words because I need you to really let them land. She looked at me. 10 months of keys and drawers and airport pickups and grocery runs and lending her my actual car. And she said, "Look, I don't owe you honesty. We're just dating." Just dating. The woman who had a drawer in my dresser, who'd basically been living at my place for months, who I'd helped study for certifications and picked up from the airport at midnight and cooked for and listened to. Just dating. Then she followed it up because apparently she wasn't done. "We're not married. Stop acting like I signed a contract." Something in me went very, very still. Not the dramatic kind of still where you're about to explode. The other kind. The kind where something inside you quietly calculates that there's nothing left to save here, and the most dignified thing you can do is end it cleanly. I stood up, I picked up her bag, I walked it to the door. "You should go." She looked at me like I was performing, like this was some overreaction she'd have to talk me down from in about 20 minutes when I'd calm down and come to my senses. "Seriously? You're gonna throw this away because of some texts?" I said, "You already did." She didn't fight it. There was no begging, no apology, no, "Wait, let me explain." She just huffed, genuinely huffed like someone mildly inconvenienced at a coffee shop, grabbed her stuff, and walked out. No second glance, no looking back to see if I was okay. And that was it. I stood in my apartment in absolute silence for a while after the door closed. The weird thing is, I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there in the middle of the room staring at the door, waiting for something that wasn't coming. The next few weeks were rough in that slow, grinding way that's somehow worse than the dramatic kind of heartbreak. Everything was a trigger. The coffee shop we went to on lazy Sunday mornings, the hoodie she'd left in my closet, a podcast I used to play on road trips that I genuinely cannot listen to anymore. My brain had mapped her onto my entire routine without me noticing. My sister Arya showed up a few days later with homemade dumplings and zero judgment. She didn't push, she just sat with me. Eventually she asked what happened, and I gave her the short version. She didn't go into lecture mode or list all the warning signs I'd missed. She just said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Not really, but I will be." I meant it, even though it didn't feel true yet. The thing about being betrayed by someone who was never fully invested in you is that eventually, once the fog starts clearing, you start to see it wasn't one big moment of betrayal. It was 100 small ones stacked up quietly over 10 months. Every eye roll, every tilted screen, every "we're just dating" energy wrapped in "sleep in my hoodie" behavior. She didn't just cheat on me at the end. She started checking out long before I noticed.
There's this idea people have about breakups where you either completely fall apart or you immediately glow up and post gym selfies with captions about growth. Real life is messier than both of those. Real recovery is less cinematic. It's mostly just choosing, every single day, to build something better than what you lost, even when you don't feel like it. I started small. I went back to the gym. The first week was genuinely humiliating. My body had apparently decided to forget that exercise existed and wanted me to pay for that in full. Everything hurt. I went anyway.
I picked up a freelance project on the side to keep my brain occupied during the hours when it would otherwise just replay the greatest hits of things I should have said or noticed earlier. There's nothing like debugging someone else's code at midnight to drown out emotional noise. Highly recommend. I called people I drifted from. That's the part nobody talks about. How relationships quietly shrink your world. Not always deliberately, but you get so focused on making one person happy that you stop watering the other connections. A couple of friends I'd been too busy for were suddenly back in my life, and I genuinely didn't realize how much I'd missed having people around who were just there. No games, no subtext, no screen tilting. And then I did something that surprised even me. I booked a solo trip. Just a few days in the mountains. First time I'd ever traveled alone. No one to clan around, no one to manage, no one whose comfort I had to factor into every single decision. Just me, a paperback I'd been meaning to read for 6 months, and an embarrassing amount of overpriced hot chocolate. Something happened in that quiet. The kind of clarity that doesn't come when you're surrounded by noise and routine and the constant performance of being fine. I sat with myself for a few days and started seeing the relationship for what it actually was, not what I'd been telling myself it was. I had been so focused on showing up for her that I never stopped to ask whether she was showing up for me, not in the big, dramatic ways, but in the small, everyday ways that actually define a relationship. Was she interested in my life? Was she grateful? Was she honest, even when it was uncomfortable? Was she there for me the way I was there for her? The answer to all of those was no. And it wasn't a recent no, it was a 10-month no that I'd been quietly ignoring because I was committed to the idea of us. Here's the thing about being a reliable, consistent, emotionally available person. It's genuinely valuable, but it only works in a relationship where the other person actually values it. If they don't, you're not building something together. You're just subsidizing someone else's comfort while they keep their options open. Saren taught me that the hard way, and honestly, I needed to learn it. Because on the other side of that lesson is the version of yourself that stops accepting less than you deserve. The version that knows what it actually feels like to have someone show up for you. The version that sets the bar where it belongs. That version of me was starting to take shape, and he was about to be tested.
5 months. Not a single word from Saren. No texts, no "hey, hope you're doing okay," no late night "I've been thinking about us" message when she'd had one too many glasses of wine. Nothing. I figured she'd moved on, probably doing the exact same thing to some other unsuspecting bloke who thought he was building something with her. And then one evening, out of nowhere, I got a DM. It was from a mutual acquaintance, a girl named Kala from Saren's old friend group. We'd maybe spoken twice total, not someone I'd ever expected to hear from. Her opening was classic social media energy. "Hey, random question, are you still in touch with Saren?" I replied, "Me? No. Why?" She waited a few minutes, then sent what I can only describe as a wall of text, and I'm going to need you to sit down for this. Saren was pregnant. Now, before you make any assumptions, it wasn't Daniel's. The story Kala laid out was a whole thing. After Saren walked out of my apartment that morning, she kept seeing Daniel. That lasted about 3 weeks before he ghosted her completely. Then there was a guy named Nico, someone she'd always insisted was just a friend during our relationship, which, sure, okay, and that didn't stick either. The baby was from someone she'd hooked up with once. Didn't even know his last name. She'd had to track him down on LinkedIn, and if that sentence doesn't make your brain short-circuit a little, I don't know what will. He made it pretty clear he had zero interest in being involved. At the time Kala messaged me, Saren was nearly 6 months along. She'd moved back in with her mum. She'd lost her job at the marketing firm after too many no-shows. She was working part-time at a cafe and, according to Kala, wasn't doing well in just about every sense of the phrase. I stared at my phone for a long time after reading all of that. And here's the part that might surprise you. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't have some dramatic moment of karma's served, table for one. I genuinely just felt nothing. That hollow, quiet nothing you feel when you've already processed your grief and come out the other side, and there's simply no emotional stake left in someone's story. I checked her Instagram once, out of pure human curiosity, just once.
Her page was a parade of vague captions, the kind of deliberately cryptic stuff people post when their life is falling apart, but they still want to look like they're okay. You know the type. Crescent moon emoji. My peace is non-negotiable. That whole genre. There was one photo where she was clearly trying to hide her bump behind a tote bag. She looked exhausted, not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep fixes, the deeper kind. I closed the app and put my phone face down. I'm not going to pretend that part of me didn't notice the irony. The woman who told me I was just someone she was casually dating now desperately needed exactly the kind of stable, reliable, present person she'd walked out on without a second glance. But that wasn't my problem anymore, and I was about to be reminded of exactly why.
She came back. Of course she did. They always come back once the music stops and the exits are blocked. It started subtle, just a short DM. Hey, hope you're doing okay. No context, no lead up, like nothing had ever happened. Like she hadn't walked out of my apartment with the energy of someone mildly annoyed at traffic. I stared at it. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another message. I've been thinking about you lately. I know I messed up, but I was hoping maybe we could talk sometime. I left that one on scene. Still, nothing from me. She escalated. A voicemail came through, which is already an aggressive move in 2025 because nobody under 40 leaves voicemails unless it's urgent or they're panicking. Her voice on the recording sounded thin, worn down, like someone who'd been running on empty for months and finally run out of road. Hey, it's me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I didn't. I wasn't fair to you. I get that now. I could really use someone who understands me. Please call me back. Here's what's interesting about that voicemail. There's not a single line in it that's actually about me. It's all about what she needs, what she's feeling, what would make things easier for her. Even the apology is structured around her own realization, not genuine acknowledgement of how she'd treated me. I don't point that out to be cruel. I point it out because that's who she was. Even reaching out to make amends, she couldn't stop making it about herself. I didn't call back. Then came the Instagram paragraph, the full essay. I know I don't deserve a response, but I need you to know I didn't mean to hurt you. I wasn't in a good place. I pushed people away. You were always good to me, and I didn't see it until I lost it. I miss the way you made me feel safe. If there's any part of you that still remembers what we had, please just talk to me. Read receipt. No reply. An hour later, a follow-up. So you're seriously not even going to acknowledge me after everything? That one I didn't even open. Then she had someone else contact me, an old mutual acquaintance named Jax, a guy I'd never particularly liked, who used to find creative ways to hang around Saren when I wasn't present. He sent me a message. Hey man, I don't want to get in your business, but Saren's going through a lot. Maybe just hear her out. I responded exactly once. She went through me. That was enough. He didn't follow up. Then came the last message. The tone had shifted completely. The softness was gone, replaced with something sharper. You know what? You're not better than me. You act so calm and mature, but you're just emotionally unavailable like every other guy. I only reached out because I thought maybe you were different. Clearly, I was wrong. Don't worry, you won't hear from me again. And there it was, the mask slipping for just long enough to show you who was underneath. She wasn't apologizing, she was shopping. And when the shelves were empty, she blamed the store.
A lot of people, when they hear this story, ask me the same question. Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you tell her exactly what she put you through? Don't you think she deserved to hear it? And I get it. There's a version of this story where I fire back with some perfectly crafted monologue that cuts right to the bone, where I lay out every single thing she did wrong, every way she failed me, every lie she told with her silence, where she has to sit there and absorb all of it with nowhere to run. That version sounds satisfying, but it's not actually what you want. Not really. Here's the thing about people who genuinely don't think they owe you honesty. They're not waiting for your perspective to update their beliefs about themselves. They're not going to read your carefully composed message and have some cinematic moment of reckoning.
What they're actually going to do is reframe it, find the line where you finally got angry and use it as evidence that you were always the problem, always too intense, always too much. They'll show that message to someone else and say, "See, this is why I couldn't be with him." Silence, on the other hand, gives them nothing to work with, no ammunition, no narrative to reconstruct, just the absence of a response, which is somehow the loudest thing you can say. When Saren said, "I didn't owe you honesty," and meant it, she handed me the roadmap for exactly how to close out our chapter. Because if she didn't owe me honesty, I didn't owe her closure. I didn't owe her an explanation for why I was moving on. I didn't owe her a conversation that would make her feel better about what she'd done. I didn't owe her anything, and the most powerful thing I could do was act exactly like that. Some people call this being the bigger person. I call it understanding how energy works. Every response you send to someone who doesn't deserve one is energy you're pulling away from yourself and handing to them for free. Every time you let someone who burned you get a rise out of you, they win the moment. The silence isn't about being cold or emotionally unavailable, despite what Saren's final message tried to suggest. It's about knowing your own worth clearly enough that you don't need to convince anyone else of it. Her last message, the one where she called me emotionally unavailable, that one almost made me laugh. Because the guy who drove across town to pick her up, the guy who sat through 3 hours of helping her study for a certification she complained about daily, the guy who quietly covered her groceries without making her feel small about it, that guy was not emotionally unavailable. He was just done being available to the wrong person. And that's the version of events she gets to carry. Not a big blowout argument she can dissect and remix, just a man who decided she wasn't worth his time anymore and acted accordingly. The silence was the answer, and it said everything I needed it to say. But if silence was chapter 1 of closing this out, the next chapter was even better, because we were about to run into each other face to face.
I almost didn't go. The invitation was for a mate's engagement party, someone I'd been close to since uni and genuinely wanted to celebrate with. But I had a feeling Saren might be in the same social circle vicinity, and running into your ex at a party while she's dealing with a situation that makes your whole chest tighten for complicated reasons was not exactly on my bingo card for the evening. But I went, because she didn't get to take good things from my life. Not one more. I showed up clean-shaven, in a navy button-down, and with someone. Her name was Lena. We'd been seeing each other for a few months at that point. Funny, sharp, genuinely kind. The type of person who texts back when she says she will and doesn't make you feel like you're constantly auditioning for a role you already got. She was exactly what I didn't know I needed until I stopped accepting the alternative. Lena squeezed my hand when we walked in together, and it felt easy. That's the best way I can describe it. Just easy. Saren was there. I spotted her across the room almost immediately, near the drink table, wearing a loose black dress that did its job of not drawing attention to her bump, talking to someone with the kind of forced smile that people wear when they're desperately trying to look fine. She saw me at roughly the same moment I saw her. She froze. I nodded politely in her direction and went on with my evening. Later, while Lena was in the restroom, Saren found her way over. Her tone was careful, measured, performing casual. "Hi, Kai." "Saren." "You look good." "Thanks." She glanced at where Lena had been standing. "She's cute. Your date?" I told her it was more than that. She said she was happy for me. Quickly, like she was getting the line out before she could stop herself, and then she shifted her weight and dropped her voice. "I wasn't lying in those messages, you know? I really did miss you." I looked at her for a moment. "I know," I said, "but you didn't miss me. You missed what I was willing to give." She said that wasn't fair. I said it was honest. She went quiet. Then, "You're not even going to try to understand where I was back then." "No, because back then you made it clear I didn't matter, and now you don't." Her composure cracked. Just for a second,
a flash behind the eyes, like something finally connecting in real time. She asked if I hated her. I told her I didn't. I told her I just didn't think about her at all. Then I walked away. Lena was waiting by the patio door holding 2 glasses of champagne and wearing that smile that I'd realized over the past few months I actually looked forward to seeing at the end of the day. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just taking out the trash." We clinked glasses. Saren didn't stay much longer after that. Nobody really commented on it. The party moved on, the way parties do, and by the end of the night, she was just a person who used to be part of my life, and now wasn't. It was really that simple in the end.
I heard through the grapevine eventually that she had the baby. The father didn't show. She moved cities, deleted most of her socials, went quiet. People who used to be in her circle drifted. Life moved on for everyone, the way it does. I'm not going to wrap this up by telling you Saren's a terrible person who got what was coming to her. Life isn't that clean, and I don't actually believe karma works like a vending machine, where you put in the bad choices and it spits out consequences on a predictable schedule. Whatever she's dealing with, I genuinely hope she figures it out. Not for my sake. Just because carrying around that kind of self-awareness gap is an exhausting way to live. And eventually, life has a way of forcing the lesson. What I will tell you is what this whole experience taught me. The first thing, the people who say, "I don't owe you honesty," are telling you the truth. Write it down. Not about the honesty part, that part's obviously rubbish, but about what it reveals. When someone tells you they don't think they owe you basic decency, they are correct that they won't be giving it to you. Believe them immediately and act accordingly. Second thing, being consistently good to someone is not a guarantee of anything. I know that's a hard one to sit with because it feels like it should work that way. You show up, you're present, you're reliable, you care, and surely the universe rewards that with someone who does the same back, right? Wrong. Being a good partner only works if the other person has the capacity and the willingness to recognize and reciprocate it. If they don't, you're not in a relationship. You're in a service role with a person who signed a contract you didn't know existed. Third, your loyalty has a value. Don't lend it out at a discount. Fourth, and this is the big one, the silence after you finally walk away is not emptiness. It feels like emptiness at first. It sounds like emptiness, but it's actually just space. Space where someone else's chaos used to live. Space that your own life is now quietly filling with better things, better people, better routines, a version of yourself that's been waiting patiently while you were busy maintaining someone else's comfort. I'm not the same person I was before Saren. I'm sharper. I'm clearer about what I want and what I'm willing to accept. I stopped mistaking patience for the same thing as tolerance. I know the difference between someone who's guarded because they've been hurt and someone who's guarded because they don't actually want to let you in. I know how it feels to be with someone, Lena, in case you forgot she exists and is great, who just shows up, without drama, without games, without me having to wonder where I stand on any given day. That's what I want you to take from this. Not be cold or trust nobody or turn yourself into someone who can't be reached. Just know your worth clearly enough that you don't need someone else to confirm it for you. And if they tell you they don't owe you honesty, leave before they prove it.